Hi friends, my name is Al, or Lilstarnerd, and welcome to another 12 Days of Christmas video. This is my Barbie tree. She is very old. She's falling apart. One of the great things about being an artist is it's like really easy to give gifts. Especially like family members are always chomping at the bit to get their grubby little hands on your art. It's just so easy to be like, hey, what do you want? Like, what do you like? And then I'll draw it for you and boom, you know, there's a great gift. So this year I asked my mom, dad, and sister, like, what do you want painted? Like, is there anything that you would like? And they gave me some options and I'm gonna paint them. I'm really hoping I don't mess up or do a bad job because that would suck, kinda. But they've given me some really fun and good options that I have some fun and cool ideas for, so I'm really excited. So let's just get into it. Let's go. So my sister sent me a few different photo options for her painting. Most of them were photos she had taken herself at a museum, but the cat clock one did come from Pinterest. I was originally planning on just doing one painting per person, but the second I was looking at the photos she sent me, I was like picturing exactly how I wanted to do them as basically like a set. A few of the photos just seemed to work really well together, and I knew I wanted to use acrylic wash and do a more graphic style with them. My sister actually just got accepted into her school of choice, so that's been a big, exciting thing going on here. She's been really excited, you know, planning what she's going to take and thinking about decorating her dorm and all that stuff. So these pieces are intended to be for her dorm to decorate with. I think they'll match the vibe she wants to go for. Of course, if she doesn't want to hang them up there, like, I would never be offended, but you know, that's what I was going for. That was the vibe, that was the intention. So I ended up picking the cat clock, a picture she took of a stuffed seagull, and a picture she took of a like statue sculpture thing. I don't know why, I just thought they all fit together weirdly nicely, and all of them, you know, would be fun and easy enough to paint. I did them all as 5x7s. I knew I wanted to frame everything for everyone, so I was trying to go for standard frame sizes with everyone's pieces. I did leave a bit of a border on the paintings just in case, which I personally love the look of, but I did have to trim it all off to frame them, which I was a bit bummed about. But like, I did know I was going to have to do that, so like, I can't be that mad about it. I did a pink underpainting for all three of the pieces. Again, I was going for that graphic vibe, and so I wanted some of that pink to show through in certain places, especially between the subject and the background, so kind of giving each subject that pink border. I personally love that look, and I think it helps to make all three pieces that much more cohesive. Also, even though obviously each piece is a bit of a different color palette, they each have a different like primary color that they're using, I do have a pretty limited palette of acrylic wash anyways, so I think that also helped to kind of make the pieces a bit more cohesive. You know, they're all using pretty much the same colors, even though they don't necessarily look like it, but you know. Each of these pieces was its own struggle. I generally don't draw or paint on like standard sizes, so starting with a very specific size paper that I had to stay in was actually really difficult for me. I'm really bad at like drawing something to be a specific size. No matter how tiny my sketch starts out, like, I do not control how big the line work ends up being, you know? So for example, the clock took multiple tries to get it to fit into the paper and maintain somewhat the right proportions. The seagull's tail got cut off. The little flute players, like statue's proportions, got pretty squished. I don't think it's too obvious when you're not looking at the reference photo, but the proportions are not accurate. So each one took longer than I thought they would because I was doing them on this much smaller scale than I tend to work on. So it was really difficult to get those sketches done. It took multiple tries, took a lot of brain power, but I got there eventually. I really don't know what it is about like strict dimensions, but they screw me up. I don't understand. Ideally, I would just draw and then trim my paper to size like around my drawing, but that isn't always like plausible. That's why for the past few months, I've really been relying on the grid method a lot, like especially for things like big canvas, because that's just much easier to deal with. But when I'm just freehanding it, like a sketch is hard sometimes. Like I will do a really loose sketch and I will get the proportions right. Like with a loose sketch, it'll look good, it'll fit into the size that I need it to. And then I'll go back in, you know, working on top of that loose sketch with more detail, doing my second pass. And all of a sudden, I'll notice that I'm drawing at like twice the scale than my original sketch was. It's so weird. I don't understand it. I don't know why I do that. I think I just can't draw small. Like with a different painting that I had done later, I noticed that I was going in and getting all the nitty-gritty detail. And because I was doing so much detail, I was drawing like way bigger than I should have been. And I couldn't get it any smaller because if I did, if I shrunk those proportions, I wouldn't be able to draw in that detail. And my mind definitely focuses on detail, so it's hard for me to like leave that behind in order to draw smaller. You know, does that make any sense at all? I don't know. But yeah, after I got over those hurdles, mostly in the sketches, they were pretty much smooth sailing. The last one, like the little statue, was a little hard because it was, it was all one color. It was metal, shiny, lots of tiny detail. I really had to rely on like implying shape because again, it was all one color. But the clock and the bird were pretty easy and fun, especially because I was doing it slightly more graphically, which lets me kind of let go of that need to get every tiny little detail in. I can still make it look somewhat realistic, in the sense that you can identify it and it has generally the right proportions and colors, but I have an excuse, to do a lazy background and let go of some of the really complicated and detailed areas. Overall, I'm really happy with how these pieces came out. I left one of the backgrounds as the pink underpainting, which I'm not sure my sister will love. I don't really know that that's the vibe she was going for, but I didn't think any other color would have made sense. I can always go back in and paint it for her after she sees it. If she doesn't like it, not a big deal. Whenever I give gifts of my art like this, I always try to make it very clear, like, it's okay if you don't like it. You don't have to like it. It's okay if you want me to change something. I never want people to feel obligated to take my art if they don't like it or pretend to like it if there's something, they want changed or whatever. I would rather they genuinely enjoy the art that I put time into than like try to spare my feelings. To me it's like I want you to like it. I worked so hard on it, even if I didn't work that hard, but it's like I put time into it. I want you to enjoy it. I think that makes it more worth it for both of us. You don't need to lie to me. But anyways, I do like how all the pieces turned out. I think they do go together in a weird way, and I can't wait for my sister to see them and let me know what she thinks. So my mom sent me a picture. This is not my picture, to be clear, or her picture. It was one that she must have found on Pinterest or the internet somewhere, of some rooftops and the church thingy, the pointy bit of a church at Harper's Ferry. Harper's Ferry is a place my family used to go to all the time, at least once a year back when we lived in Virginia. It's still one of my favorite places. The hike is beautiful. The history reenactments are so fun. Just overall, amazing, cool place. There are so many adorable shops. The buildings are beautiful. It's always cool to stand, in the center of the bridge and be in 3 states at once. And if you're really lucky, you can be on the bridge when a train is crossing it. That's crazy. That is so fun. If you're anywhere close to Harper's Ferry, I implore you to go visit if you haven't already. If you have visited, go visit again. It's such an amazing place. So many cool sights to see. Even the roads, the rocks, just rocks, they're stunning. I can't wait to go back as soon as possible. So when my mom showed me the photo, I was immediately intimidated. My style with gouache, especially lately, tends to be pretty simplified, not super simplified, just not as detailed as it could be. I don't go into super crazy detail. And this is a photo of basically just detail. And gouache is my current go-to for finished pieces. So I was a bit nervous. I didn't want this to be a piece that was super graphic. I didn't think that would make sense. I didn't want any flat washes of color, I didn't want blocking. I wanted to really capture all the texture and shadow and gradients that were in this photo, as well as the details. I think this is the kind of photo where every little bit of information really matters, and I didn't want to lose any of that. I think like the composition, it's just roofs, and without roofs, it's just roofs. And without that detail, it's kind of boring. Like adding that detail is what gives it its charm. So I didn't want to risk losing any of it. And then I asked my mom like what size she was thinking, because I was kind of picturing doing max, an 8x10 for everyone, depending on what they asked for. Just, I was on a bit of a time crunch. And she said 11x14, and I was like, okay, oh boy. But, I wanted to do it. It was bigger than I generally feel comfortable doing, especially with something like gouache. Like, obviously, lately I've been doing bigger stuff than I'm used to. It's not like 11x14 is totally unknown to me. So, I was going to try to do it. I didn't feel super comfortable, but I was going to do it. I decided to go with watercolor. Does anyone else feel like picking the right medium for a piece is like almost solely a gut thing? Like, I cannot explain why watercolor was the right choice, but I can't imagine doing it in any other medium. I started off a little hesitant, a little conservative with light washes of things to map out colors, and then on the second pass, I went right in with essentially like rendering each little area. Certain areas, of course, took multiple passes, like getting darks dark enough, and of course adding detail to certain places, like brick textures, lines of siding on houses and stuff. I also went really blue heavy in shadows and darks, and I really love that. This one I was nervous about, obviously. It's pretty different to anything I've done before. I'm not huge on buildings and architecture and lots of straight lines. It's something that's been really interesting to me and, calling to me lately, but definitely not something I have experience with. So I was not confident going in. I definitely was thinking this one would either be a disappointment or I would have to redo it a few times or do it really small or something. But you know what? I absolutely love how it turned out. I am so obsessed with it, and I think it might be one of the best things I've done in a while. Definitely best since my large night commission. I love the colors, I think it's really beautiful, and I'm so proud of it, and I'm so excited for my mom to see it. I think she's gonna love it. My favorite part, what I think tied it all together, was going back in at the end with some fine liners to neaten up some areas, and then going in with gouache. That gouache for the whites and lights and window panes, I think it really brought it all together, made it come to life. So yeah, just thrilled with how it turned out. I had such a fun time painting it. I would love to do more stuff like this in the future. So my dad kept asking for Christmas themed things, and I had to be like, it doesn't have to be a Christmas painting, right? And so finally he decided on a pelican standing on a pole, one of those beach poles. And he wanted it to be a tall, skinny piece, very long, really exaggerating the piece and emphasizing the shape of the bird, right? Which I love the idea of, very different, I don't do that kind of thing. And I also love the opportunity to paint a bird, You guys know I love my Florida birds. But again, having to stay in weird constraints and draw at a certain size was not working for me at all. I tried 3 separate pieces of paper to make it work, but in the end, I unfortunately had to just use a pretty regular sized paper. It's still weird dimensions. I think it's a 7x11-ish, something like that, but not what it was supposed to be. This is the piece that I talked about earlier where I kept trying to draw it smaller, but I kept drawing all the tiny details, so I physically couldn't get it any smaller. So I didn't quite get this piece the way I or my dad wanted it, which was frustrating, but it was definitely necessary in order to make it not ugly and have crazy bad proportions, so. I decided to also use watercolor for the pelican. Again, just one of those gut things, that told me this was the right medium to go with. The painting part of this was actually really easy. I find birds in general to be pretty easy. As long as I can get the anatomy right with the sketch, then it's all a breeze from there. Assuming I'm not trying to kill myself, trying to get each individual feather right, then it's really hard. But yeah, I started with a wash up by the head for the darker area, and then I was like, this is a small and pretty simple piece. I know how to do birds. I don't need to plan with washes like I did with the last one. So then I kind of just went in right away with, stronger colors, more finalized. It did take some back and forth, obviously. Like I would move on to one area and then have to go back and add a layer to darken another area or add some more detail or color variation. It was a really fun process. Like I said, I always love birds, love drawing them, love painting them. I had a good time. Similar to the Harper's Ferry one, I went back in with some gouache to add those final touches, the white areas, feathers on top of the background, and of course, that absolutely brought it to life. I love those final touches. I really like the way this turned out. Obviously, the post that the pelican is standing on is not the focal point of the piece, so I didn't pay too much attention to it when painting. But when I was watching the footage back, I realized I actually really liked the way that I did it. I love the shadow on the back end. I love the depth and drama of that. And then for the background, I was originally going to do my watercolor go-to, which is a watered down blue teal color, but for some reason that just didn't seem like the right choice. So instead I went with this beautiful red color that was in the beak a little bit and only the beak to kind of highlight that pop of color and tie that in a bit better. And I'm so happy with that choice. I think the bird stands out really well from that color, better than it would have from the blue. And I also think it kind of alludes to a sunset sky or something, so I love that. Overall, thrilled with this painting, and I think my dad is definitely gonna love it. It's not exactly what he asked for, but I don't think he'll mind too much. I think all of these pieces I did were successes, and I'm so happy about that. I really didn't want to mess up these paintings for my family. I'm so excited to watch them all open their gifts on Christmas. I can't wait to see their reactions. I'm at Goodwill. There's a tornado watch warning going on, whatever the one is. There's no real tornado, but the storm is crazy, the lightning is insane, and for some reason the Goodwill is still packed. Explain that to me. Okay, the gifts are complete. They're wrapped. I used some of my favorite wrapping paper. This one, obviously, I could not find a frame for, so that sucks. I love this paper. I warned them like, hey, the frames are ugly. You can switch them out, it's fine. They're not necessarily ugly, they're just like not the vibe, you know? But there we go, I've got some gifts done, wrapped, out of the way, and I didn't have to do that, I didn't have to spend that much money. So I appreciate that. I'm gonna go put all these bad boys under the tree. Thank you for joining me, I hope you enjoyed watching. It was a lot of art, I hope you enjoyed that. Overheating in this sweater. If you enjoyed, please like, comment, subscribe. Also check out the playlist of all my other 12 Days of Christmas videos. I put a lot of work into them. I'm really excited about them. There's only 2 more left, and they both have to do with the sketchbook tour, so get excited. Like, comment, subscribe, the whole shebang. I hope you're having a great holiday season. Happy Kwanzaa, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Christmas, Happy New Year, Happy winter time. But yeah, that's it. I will see you next time. Go do something seasonal, eat a cookie, and go do some art.